Happy Friday, Fumco family. It is the 26th of June, and I am happy to be with you today to talk about a friend of mine, Donald Duck. But first, the music. I am back with you again on a Friday to share with you a little bit of encouragement. And I really struggled this week with thinking about what I would share with you. But I went to my bookshelf and I found a book that, well, it's me. The Gospel in Disney. There it is, backwards. The very last chapter is about Donald Duck. So I took a little bit from that and I wanted to share it with you. Now, in 1934, Walt Disney Studios released a new film in its animated series, Silly Symphonies. It was the story of the wise little hen and introduced us to Donald Duck. Now, one of Donald's most prominent character traits has always been his explosive temper, punctuated by sputtering fits of inarticulate quacking. Donald's temperament has an exceedingly short fuse. It doesn't take much to set him off, and once Donald loses his temper, the consequences are usually disastrous. Whether it's a leaky faucet or a rainy day, 2 pesky chipmunks or 3 mischievous nephews, it only takes a few moments of frustration and Donald is likely to blow his top. Now, we all have a temper, and Jesus had a temper. He got angry. In Mark 3:1-5 is an example. Another time he went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill. But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger, and deeply distressed by their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. I mean, for us, maybe our neighbor is noisy, spouse is late for dinner, we get bumped somewhere, admit it or not, some things are going to make us angry. Anger is a natural human emotion. The question is, what do we do with it? Do we control our anger, or does our anger control us? Learning to control it doesn't mean pretending it doesn't exist. That can be dangerous as well. Ulcers, high blood pressure, migraines, or even asthma are often related to sustained and suppressed emotions. Learning to control our anger doesn't mean denying it. It essentially is an issue of management. The author compares anger possibly to gasoline. It can burn or explode. If we can learn to control it, direct it, make it fire evenly and effectively like gasoline in the engine of an automobile, its energy can move us forward. Right now, a lot of people are angry about a lot of different things, but so much of that anger serves no constructive purpose. Quite the opposite, its effect is frequently destructive, like Donald Duck losing his temper when the door is stuck, kicking it in, causing the whole wall to collapse. Now, when Jesus became angry at the Pharisees for their rigidity with regard to the Sabbath, he didn't lash out at them. Instead, he unleashed the energy of that anger in an act of healing, an act of love. Mark reports, he looked around at them with anger. He was grieved at their hardness of heart, and he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. A second lesson central to the gospel that I think Donald Duck's experiences repeatedly demonstrate is the ultimate futility of retaliation. The theme in this, as so many Donald's films, is the battle that develops between Donald and some antagonist, maybe a bee, a bear, a rooster, possibly a gopher, 2 chipmunks, or his nephews. Sometimes Donald is the instigator, sometimes he's not, but once the battle begins, the problems invariably build up to something catastrophic. When our concern for vengeance overshadows every other concern, we're participating in our own destruction. This is the focus of Jesus' ethic. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. Matthew 5:38-39. Learn the lessons of love, the kind of love that embraces not only those who love you, but those who don't, even your enemies. Learn to love goodness even more than you hate evil. The vicious cycle of evil endlessly retaliating against evil can never be broken unless, somewhere, somebody refuses to go on with it. Donald Duck teaches us with comedy, and Jesus declares to us about eternity that the world's feuds can never end, and the vicious cycle of violence retaliating against violence can never stop until someone refuses to respond to hate with hate, and chooses instead to respond to hate with love. I think we need a lot of love right now. It's been a challenging time for these past few months, and I think people are getting frustrated and angry. And what can we do but show love and compassion right now? That's really all we have. And now a third and final lesson. Donald represents, I think, his most redeeming quality, however short his temper. Donald is a duck of rugged determination because he's forever driven by hope. Many of Donald's films depict a duck besieged by disaster in the line of duty. He may be a fire chief trying to cope with a fire that breaks out in his own station. He may be a forest ranger trying to save trees from a beaver invasion. He may be a blacksmith trying to shoe a stubborn donkey. Or maybe a foster parent to a kangaroo. Whatever his duty, Donald can count on trouble, and we can count on Donald to persist. Even when everything goes wrong, Donald is still determined to make it right. And that perspective goes directly to the heart of the gospel itself, the promise of a final victory that sanctifies life with determination and hope. Hope that becomes God's claim upon our lives as God seeks to engage us in the struggle for justice and peace, dignity and reconciliation, healing and compassion. God's work is our work, collectively through united efforts such as the church, and individually through our own determination to serve the values that hope makes possible. In 1964, a 27-ton freighter in Al-Kuwait sank in the harbor of Kuwait. It might have been abandoned except for the fact that it went down with a load of 6,000 sheep whose carcasses represented a health hazard to the harbor. In a short time, they would poison the supply of drinking water. The only hope for avoiding a major potential health hazard was to bring the sunken ship back to the surface. Now, a Danish inventor by the name of Carl Kreuer had a proven genius for solving problems. His inventions had earned him a reputation for troubleshooting. So the ship owners turned to him for a solution. Was there any hope? Kreuer studied the situation and assured them there indeed was. Immediately, Kreuer dispatched a small vessel to Kuwait harbor. It carried a long injector hose and 27 billion polystyrene balls, which were blown into the hull of the sunken ship. The buoyancy of the balls eventually counterbalanced the density of the vessel. Within 24 hours, the ship had been raised, the impending disaster averted, and subsequently ships from all over the world have been salvaged by the Kreuer method. Where did Carl Kreuer get his brilliant idea? After being presented with a problem he happened to remember, a Donald Duck comic book published in 1949, it contained a story in which Donald successfully salvaged a sunken yacht by filling it with ping-pong balls. That fictional challenge to Donald Duck inspired the Danish inventor to avert a serious disaster. It framed a gift of hope. So today, may we cling to the hope of a better world, where fewer lives may sink under the seas of poverty and warfare and ignorance and loneliness and despair. May we join the rescue teams of humanity, and may we have the determination of the world's most famous and beloved duck, who, fallible though he may be, is forever driven by hope, for hope is the child of faith and the parent of love. How can we be people of hope and love in these times? Well, we can say a prayer, read a psalm, wash our hands, and tell someone we love them. Have a blessed day.